And one reason we might have for thinking that God needs to suffer and that God needs to have emotions is that we want to say God is what's called omniscient, so God has all knowledge. But knowledge doesn't just seem to be something about propositions, right? Knowledge isn't just if I read an encyclopedia and can remember it all and it's an encyclopedia of everything anywhere, then I have all knowledge. It's also knowledge of what things are like. So a story is sometimes told about a neuroscientist called Mary, and Mary's brought up in this black and white world, but she reads everything she can about colour and about colour perception, everything that's available. One day she's let out of this black and white world and she goes and she sees a red flower for the first time. It's the colour red for the first time, and there's this question, has she learnt anything new? And for those of us who want to say, yes, she's learnt something new, what we've then got to say is there's a kind of knowledge that's not propositional knowledge, it's not just knowledge of facts, it's more like experiential knowledge or phenomenal knowledge, knowledge of what it is like to have this. And if God is an omniscient being, it doesn't seem enough to say that God only has propositional knowledge, only has knowledge of facts. It seems for a lot of people that we'd also want to say, well, God knows what it's like to experience love. God knows what it's like to experience suffering. God knows what it's like to experience anger, say. And I'm really sympathetic to that. In fact, I've argued that at various points. Now, it's not without its problems. We can't just finish there. Does God know what it's like for me as a bodily being and as a woman who's living in the 21st century and so on, to experience a particular thing rather than for someone else to experience? Well, perhaps we can say, yes, God does through empathy. So perhaps God can have not exactly knowledge of what it's like for me to experience it, but second person knowledge of what it's like for me, Tasia, to experience something. So that seems all right. But then there are harder questions. So do we want to say that God knows what it's like to feel sadistic? Do we want to say that God knows what it's like to feel horny? So there are all sorts of questions that remain unanswered if we follow this line of reasoning. And I think for the passibility or impassibility debate, question of whether God has emotions, that's got to be one of the kind of key questions that we need to answer if we want to hang on to this intuition that Mary learns something new when she sees the colour red, and that we don't want that kind of knowledge to be lacking from God.